This story is soft. It is not loud or fast. It is about a boy who started with nothing. No name, no family, no plan. But something inside him was special. People did not see it yet. But one day, he would change the world. Steve was born in California, but his real parents were not ready. They were young and scared, so they gave him away. He didn't know why. He didn't know their faces. His life started with a goodbye. But sometimes sadness hides a secret gift. A kind couple adopted the baby. Their names were Paul and Clara Jobs. They were not rich, but they were warm. They gave Steve love, safety, and care. Their home was small, but full of heart. Steve became their son. This was the beginning of his real family. Paul was a mechanic. He loved to fix things with his hands. He showed Steve how to open machines. They worked together in the garage. Cars, radios, and old parts became toys. Paul said, "Make it perfect, even if no one sees." Steve listened, and he remembered. Steve was not like the other kids. He didn't run or shout. He looked at wires. He asked, "Why does this move?" He liked to take toys apart, not to break them, but to understand. His mind was always busy with little mysteries. School was hard for Steve, not because he was slow, but because he was too fast. He finished work early, he got bored, he made jokes, he made trouble. But deep inside, he was searching for something more. Something no school could teach him. One day, Steve saw a computer. It was not small, like today's laptops. It was huge, big as a closet. Most kids walked past it. But Steve stood still. He watched. And he wondered. Something changed inside him in that moment. He thought, what can this machine really do? It was not just wires and lights. It was a key, a door, maybe even a new kind of mind. That moment stayed with him forever. He did not know it yet, but this was the beginning of his dream. In high school, Steve met a boy named Woz. His full name was Steve Wozniak. Woz was quiet, smart, and full of ideas. He could build anything with wires. The two Steves became best friends. They talked about machines all day. They started to build things together. Their first project was small. It was called a blue box. It let people make free phone calls. It was clever, but not legal. Still, Steve said, without that box, Apple would never exist. It wasn't about phones. It was about power. the power to create. Steve went to college. But he didn't feel right there. He didn't want to waste his parents' money. So he dropped out. Many people thought he failed. But Steve stayed on campus. He sat in classes quietly, just to learn what he loved. One day, Steve found a class on calligraphy. It was about letters, space, and beauty. No one thought it was useful. But Steve felt something magical. He didn't know why it mattered yet. But years later, this would shape the future of computers. Steve traveled to India. He was young and searching for peace. There, he walked, meditated, and listened. He learned about silence. He learned to think slowly. These lessons stayed with him for life. Sometimes the answers come when the world is quiet. Back home, Steve had a dream, not of money, but of meaning. He wanted to build a new kind of machine, one that felt human. He and Woz worked in his parents' garage. They had no office, only hope, tools, and long nights. They needed a name. Steve thought of Apple. It was simple. It felt fresh and clean, just like the kind of computers he wanted to make. He said, "Let's call it Apple." And so the story of Apple began. Their first product was called the Apple I. It was built by hand. It didn't look like much. But people were curious. They saw the fire behind the machine. It was more than wires. It was a piece of someone's dream. Most computers were made for engineers. Steve didn't like that. He said, technology should be for everyone, even children, even people with no training. He believed machines could feel warm, not cold, friendly, not scary. Next came the Apple II. This computer had color. It was easy to use. People loved it. It became a big success. Apple grew fast, and Steve, at only 23, became a millionaire. Money came fast. But Steve didn't care much about money. He cared about making things better. He said, "We are here to put a dent in the universe." He wanted to build something people would never forget. Steve looked at every detail, even small buttons or corners. If something was wrong, he said, "Start over." Some people thought he was too hard, but Steve believed if it's not perfect, it's not done. He asked for more because he saw more. Steve was a businessman, but inside he was an artist. He didn't just make computers, he made experiences. He wanted people to feel something when they touched a machine. To him, A computer was not a tool. It was a canvas. Then came the Macintosh. It was small, smart, and friendly. It had pictures called icons. You could click them with a mouse. People smiled when they used it. It felt new. It felt alive. But not everyone liked Steve's ways. He was strong, he was direct. Some people at Apple thought he was too much. They had a meeting, and they pushed him out. Steve was fired from the company he started. Steve was sad. He felt lost. But he didn't stop dreaming. He started a new company. He called it Next. And he kept building, quietly, even when the world wasn't watching. Steve also bought a small animation studio. It was called Pixar. At first, it made no money. But Steve believed in the team. He believed in their art. Together, they made a film called Toy Story. It changed movies forever. Toy Story was the first film made with only computers. It made people laugh and cry. It touched hearts around the world. Steve smiled again. He had found something special. Again. He knew stories, like machines, could change the world. While Steve was busy with Pixar and Next, Apple was failing. The company lost money. The spark was gone. People stopped believing in Apple. They needed help. They needed Steve. In 1997, Apple called Steve. They asked him to come back. He said yes. He was calm, but ready. This time he would fix things his way. He cleaned up the company. He started again. With clear eyes. Steve made a new computer called the iMac. It was blue, round, and fun. It looked like candy. People loved it. It wasn't just about speed. It was about feeling. And Apple was alive again. To save Apple, Steve made a deal with Microsoft. It was Apple's old rival. Many people were angry, but Steve said, "It's not about fighting, it's about building." That deal gave Apple money, and more importantly, hope. In 2001, Steve had a new idea. What if you could carry all your music in one tiny box? So he made the iPod. It held 1,000 songs in your pocket. No more CDs or tapes. Music became light, free, and always with you. Steve looked at the iPod like a sculpture. He cared about how it felt in your hand. He said, "Design is not just how it looks. It's how it works." Every detail mattered, even the box it came in. It wasn't just a product, it was a feeling. Then came Steve's biggest gift, the iPhone. A phone, a music player, and a computer, all in one. Before the iPhone, phones were hard to use. Now they felt like magic. People could touch the screen. It was simple, smooth, and beautiful. The iPhone changed everything. It wasn't just a tool. It became part of your day. People listened, took photos, and talked, all with one hand. Steve didn't just make a phone, he made something that felt like magic in your pocket. Then Steve opened the App Store. Now anyone could create something for the iPhone. Games, maps, music, books, anything. The phone became a door to the world. People didn't just use it. They built with it. Steve had made a platform for dreams. But behind all this success, Steve was sick. He had cancer. He tried to heal in many ways. Some worked, some didn't. But he kept working. He smiled. He moved forward, even in pain. Even when tired, Steve kept dreaming. He said, "I want to leave a dent in the universe." He meant it. He worked every day, as if time was running out. He knew life was short, but he believed ideas could live forever. In 2010, Steve introduced the iPad. It was bigger than a phone, smaller than a laptop. People didn't understand it at first, but when they used it, they smiled. It was simple, light, and fun. It was perfect for stories, videos, and dreams. At home, Steve liked silence. He walked in the garden with his wife. They talked. They listened to music. They looked at the trees. Steve found peace in small things. Sunlight, wind, a quiet morning. Steve had 4 children. He wasn't always the perfect dad, but he tried. He told them, "Do what you love. Don't settle." He knew life was short, and love was more important than work. In 2011, Steve stepped down from Apple. His body was tired. He knew he couldn't lead anymore. But he stayed close. He helped his team. He shared his thoughts. He gave them his last ideas. Steve spent more time at home. He sat in his garden. He held his wife's hand. He watched the sun rise. He said, "Being the richest man in the graveyard doesn't matter." He just wanted to do something good before the end. On October 5th, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away. He was only 56 years old. The world felt quiet. People cried, not just for a man, but for the dreamer inside him. Before he left, Steve gave one final message: stay hungry, stay foolish. He meant, keep learning, keep dreaming, even if others don't understand you. Especially then. We still use iPhones, iPads, and Macs. But more than that, we think differently now. Because Steve taught us to ask, what if? And then go build the answer. Steve didn't only leave products. He left courage. He left creativity. He left the idea that one person, with passion, with vision, can change everything. Steve's story is not just about computers. It's about people. about believing in something no one else can see and holding on to that dream, even when it hurts. Maybe you feel small. Maybe your dream is strange. But Steve started in a garage with no money, no plan, just a feeling that the world could be better. There is a spark inside you, too. It may be quiet. It may be hidden. But it's real. If you care for it, if you build with it, it can grow into something amazing. Steve's story ends here. But your story is just beginning. Take his lessons, make them your own, and remember, the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.